I'm Troy Thompson. Over the last 15 years, our family has worked hard to create a place we call the center of the universe. A place where our kids and someday our grandkids can come home to and laugh, have fun, learn how to work, pray, worship God, and be a place to celebrate life with all our friends. After a quarter century in uniform, I put away one set of boots for another, working on our acreage, improving the land, fixing some structures, and building new ones. We say, give back to the community, be useful, keep your hands calloused, and spread the gospel. This is a little place in a little state right in the middle of flyover country, from which cries out a voice in the wilderness to all who might want to listen, learn, and laugh along with us. This is our American dream. Hello, friends and neighbors, and welcome to Sunnyside. Well, first of all, I apologize. This is a late-released episode. I'm recording it the day of, so making it in the morning and sending it out as soon as it's available, and that's what I'm doing. Why? Because this past weekend, when I normally sit down in the studio and record an episode, I was busy. I was busy, man. I was working on, we got the baseball press box done. Still got one left to finish, and but it's great. It's great to have that off the plate, and so that was first thing in the morning on Saturday, and then turned right around and zipped down to Des Moines and went to an AAU basketball tournament with my wife and my son Colin, our youngest, who's a pretty good basketball player, and actually got his first dunk, his first legitimate dunk, not in a game, but in their warm-ups. He was able to get that two-handed dunk, not a rim grazer or anything like that. So I feel like the floodgates are now open for our son Colin, who is going to be a sophomore in high school. And his team is a lot of fun to watch. They are all freshmen going into their sophomore year. They're all, except for one, I think, all in baseball as well. And they're they're all in a variety of sports. Fun to watch, very good, work well together. They beat other teams. They came in third, and the reason for that, I think, is because, they lost a couple of games, so that's how that happens. But they won the first couple of games that they played in on Saturday, and then dropped the last couple of games that they played in on Sunday. But they play teams that are conglomerate, all-star teams. These are AAU teams, so they just take the best player from this town or this player over here or this school or whatnot. They beat schools from Omaha and Des Moines area or places like that. They've gone to other tournaments and beat teams from Cedar Rapids and big places. We have a small school. There's 1,000 some kids in the entire K through 12. These guys are all in the same class. They play together, have played together for a long time, and then they just go out and reminded me a little bit of Hoosiers, that you would just go out and take on the big teams before there were differences in conference and class sizes and things like that. And so now they did well. I'm very proud of them, and it's fun to watch them play. They do play hard. They play well. They are disciplined. They have team plays that they work on offense and defense, and you can tell the difference. Sometimes the teams that they play are nothing more than individualists that happen to be wearing the same jersey, and we usually beat them because they can't hold it together. And there was one particular game where we just encouraged them just to keep shooting from the outside because they didn't make a lot of the baskets, and they all wanted to be three-point champions, and most of them were not. And so we just held the defense inside, and the other team went for the gold, and they lost and came out, I think, at the bottom of the tournament. So it was a fun weekend in that regard. Didn't come out on top. They have come out on top as champions before, again, playing schools much bigger or schools that might be the same size, but they've got 5 or 6 schools, in the area that they're just pulling their all-stars out and doing this AAU stuff, which, by the way, can get kind of expensive. It's not too bad. We had the opportunity to spend the weekend down in Des Moines, and that was kind of fun, and hang out with the parents. And we did that with baseball, too, with Jack, and it worked out pretty well. They ended up, being state champions back in the day in that type of league, those traveling leagues. So it is fun. It's worthwhile. It certainly shows up in the high school play, and then potentially down the road in college. But it also, it's a little crazy. I mean, parents are a little crazy. One thing that we will occasionally take snippet videos of our kids performing in sports, and whether it's baseball or track, you have like a little video of your kid running at the state track meet or whatever it happens to be, and same thing in football. We've got some snippet. We do not record the whole game, because we're there, like we see it, and we're also never going back. And as parents, like as a dad, I'm never going to go back and let's watch the film, son. We're going to review what you did in this particular game. Like that's never going to happen. For one, I find that really out of my league. Like I'm not a coach that's going to review film and give my kids advice. I coached them as little kids, little baseball players. My philosophy in baseball was when they were starting to play coach pitch, because you work through T-ball, and then they have coach pitch, and then you get to you get to the where they can pitch themselves, and this they get a little bit older and a little bit better, and I coach them all the way through that stuff. And my philosophy with our little guys, which is the same group of kids, like with Colin and with Jack, just like, look, we're not going to do any batting until the very end of practice, because I know you all want to bat, and that's the most exciting thing for you little boys is to bat and try to be home run kings, and that will come. We're going to focus only on fielding, and you're going to know how to field the ball, and you're going to know what to do with the ball once you've stopped it, and we're going to be undefeated. And we were, because the other teams focus on batting like morons, because that's what the kids want to do. And I would make them just run defensive plays all day long, and then we would bat for like 10 minutes at the end. They'll become better batters, and they do become better batters. They have batting practices for that. But for us to win at that level, the little kids, you just got to know what the psychology is of the other kids and the parents that go with them, and be like, well, they're just going to bat all the time, and it's fun for them, and we're just going to play defense and throw them out, which is heartbreaking and very satisfying to watch your opponent's kids get thrown out at first base almost every single time. And then we would just go up and run the bases because nobody else knew how to field. And so that was my level. But we would never watch film. And I don't even know if we have any video evidence of my story that I just told. Why? Because we were there. We were there. And some of these parents at these AAU games, whether it's baseball or basketball, I suppose it's the same thing in volleyball, they're really pinning their hopes and dreams on their child's athletic prowess. And that's pathetic, because you just, you're going to go home and review this. Like, the kid did it. They worked hard. And now you're going to go back and make them sit and watch the film. I just think it is pathetic. I stand on that ground. Like, there was a dude that was not from our team, and this dad was filming the entire thing as if it was going to be on ESPN. And then he would go and film afterwards the coaching. Now, they beat us. They did beat us. So maybe there's a reason. Maybe they do watch the film, and maybe that's why they're better than we are. I think the reason that they were better than we are is because they hit more baskets than we did, and that allowed them to score more points, and then we lost because we didn't have as many points as they did. Keep it simple, stupid. And I think that's, so I just, that's annoying. Some of the parents are, if you're a parent that is wrapped up in my kids play in all four sports. I have all four boys. They all played in all four sports. And some of them are really good in some sports, and they're okay at others, and then maybe not so good in other sports. They still play. They stay fit, and they stay active, and they're part of a team. And that's great. And now 3 of the 4, Colin's still in high school, have gone on and will go on to play college ball, and that helps pay for college, which I think is great, because you should have whatever it is, whether it's a sport or an activity. It's a skill that you have that you can get a scholarship for that to go to college. That's what you should do, because remember, the colleges work for us, not the other way around. And so I've always told that to my kids. Like, well, I paid for my degree, and so did your mom. So like, now, what are you going to do to get your degree? Because I won't be able to use your degree for anything that benefits me. In fact, my degree doesn't benefit me, to be completely honest. Like, my degree in history makes you good at trivia, so I just, if you're going to go to college, you need to pick it based on, what's the best deal for you. Like it's a car dealer. I want this particular model of this particular make. I have to know what I can afford, and I don't want to go in insane debt because in some ways it's a depreciating asset. I know that colleges don't feel that way. They think that their diplomas are worth gold, and we're going to talk about gold here in a little bit. And they're not. You can get a diploma pretty much anywhere, and as we've seen throughout American history, anyway, the brainiacs in academia have done a great job transforming the minds of our children into mush. And so the other day we had a conversation. My son and I, Colin, had a conversation. And it was, let's see, I told him a story about a local guy who had been, because D-Day was a while ago, on the 6th of June, and we had talked about how there was a guy that had been in World War II that was a local guy, and he had seen some terrible things. He was part of the 34th Infantry Division, which is the division that I was part of as a member of the Iowa Army National Guard. And the 34th ID, the Red Bulls, were the first to go to war. They went to Africa first, 1942, right away. People said, well, the war started in 1941, which is true, but that was December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor happened. So 1942 was about as soon as you can get out there. And the 34th ID, which was National Guard division, went out, and that's Iowa, Minnesota, and parts of South Dakota, went out to Africa, and they were there in combat until the war was over. So they hold 616 days in combat, which is I think that's the record for a single division or a unit. And 34th ID, the Red Bulls, pretty historic division. This guy had been a part of it, saw a lot of things. And for the rest of his life, while he was, a valuable part of the community and an asset and working and things like that, still had some demons that he was struggling with his entire life, and solved it by, basically road tripping. And, they weren't counseling services for World War II veterans and like there are today. And so Colin's assessment, was, he's 15, he's like, well, I don't know what we would do if there was another big war. I don't know if my generation could handle it. And I just let it go, because I was like, I think that every generation surprises itself when faced with the opportunity or the challenge to stand up and fight for something that is honorable and worthwhile. And that's been proven throughout our history, regardless of whether we won or lost that particular battle or war. There's always been men and women that have stood up and offered to fight. And so I'm probably more confident than he is. However, I do have my doubts. Like, we're pretty soft, and we've become softer as we've gotten older as a nation, and so it'll be interesting to see how that works. So I thought that was an interesting insight for him. But they did battle it out at this tournament, and anyway, that's what took up my time. I didn't get back yesterday until later in the evening, and of course it was Father's Day, so it was fun to spend time with the boys. My son Tanner came through and talked, spent some time with us, had dinner with us, and of course Jack and Colin and my son Tate sent me some books, and chatted with him by text a little bit down in Kansas City. Got me a book about the pursuit of happiness. That's a Jeff Rosen book that's fairly new, regarding the influences of the founders, the influences on the founders of the United States and their thought process as they developed our nation. And then he got me a great book, too. It's called The Kid, The Immortal Life of Ted Williams, who I still view as one of the greatest hitters of all time, and I like his character. I like Ted Williams, Boston Red Sox, just amazing. Part of the reason I like Ted Williams, besides his batting style and his ability to read the pitchers so well, is his character. He did not like the press, the sports media, wasn't keen on them. He was a bit of a crotchety person in that regard, but he also took care of the kids. That's what he cared about. And he also loved to fish. And so I'm like, well, I like those things too. And he was a veteran. He was awesome in the major leagues, and then World War II happened, and then he went to war and flew. Came back from World War II, went back in, awesome on the batting for in the major leagues, and then Korea happens. He's still in the reserves. He goes back and flies a bunch of combat missions in Korea, then comes back and continues his career and is awesome again. And you just don't see that type of heroism in today's athletic culture. Sorry. That just doesn't, like, who cares if you're super strong and can perform all these athletic feats? What do you do it is, what's it for? What are you doing it for? The purpose of athletics is competition, and competition is an ancient tradition, particularly with, male athletics, is the ability to determine who the best warriors in the village are. And so the reason that we have sports is so that we can determine who has the athletic prowess and the ability to be better than the warriors in the next village over, or wherever it is that you happen to be competing, in my opinion. Historically speaking, that's why we do it. And so that's why in our nature, I think we have parents that are just like so excited to see their little warriors be successful, and they try to train them as warriors. And now we've created an entire industry of athletic and physical therapy for babies, for children. We put our children out there and turn them into, but they're not warriors. they're athletes, and they're having knee operations, and they're not even out of junior high yet. So good job, parents. And so there's all these issues that are surrounding it. And Ted Williams actually was a warrior and an awesome athlete. Like, that's who you should be modeling your kids after. It's like, I'm going to put this bat down now, and I'm going to go get in a jet and go, serve my country. I'm going to put this, football down, and I'm going to go pick up a rifle, and on and on and on. Like, those are the people that I've tried to teach my kids to admire, because I don't care if you're an amazing athlete. It's awesome. It's great. But until you're doing something with all of that strength to kick down the doors of the bad guys and use that might for right, I could care less. Like, you're not a hero to me. You're a specimen who's choosing to use all of your fighting skills or all of your athletic prowess to fill your bank account, give yourself a platform, serve yourself. And we buy into that because our heroes are no longer the warriors of old. We've switched it and turned them into, professional players. And they're supposed to be warriors, but I mean, they're soft. At the end of the day, nobody's putting down their millions of dollar contract and walking away and going. Now, Ted Williams didn't have $1 million contract back then. I mean, they paid professional ball players a lot less. But he's always been a kid, a guy that, not a kid. I've been a big fan of Ted Williams for many, 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 many years, and try to encourage my own boys to appreciate that type of athlete. So we'll see what the book says. I'm sure that it's supposed to be the best biography about Ted Williams. We'll see if that's the case, and I look forward to reading it. So thanks for getting that. Tanner got me some coffee, which was nice. We like to grind our own coffee, so he got some coffee from a recent trip that he was on. That was nice. And, I got hugs from Jack and Colin, which was, that's okay too. So had a great weekend, and I just decided last night that I was like, I'm not going to record. I'm just want to relax, and so I did. So it's late today. It's still coming out on Monday, but it's raining. Can't work on things outdoors. Don't have a reason to work on things outdoors. The hay's put away. It's dry. So we'll move on with the other things. We are going to talk about some interesting. I have a take. That's my deal. I have a take on things, and I hope you find this interesting to some degree. But we're going to talk about mining. We're going to mining, you say? Yeah, we're going to talk about mining and who's being mined and what I think is happening, and just to kind of put it all in perspective and not in like a conspiratorial manner. It's just maybe more of a just a wider view. So most of the things that we rely on everything has to come from somewhere. I have to grow hay and create it in order to sell it to somebody so that their animals can eat it, so that they can turn that into meat, so that you can buy it at the grocery store or at the farm market or whatever, and you can enjoy your dinner. And so most of us have that same thing. We all rely on our cell phones, right? We've got our little mobile phones that we carry around. They've got little lithium batteries inside of it, and we just want them to work and do what we want, and we want to watch our videos and communicate, and occasionally even take a phone call. And so that and all the different apps, that we can have on, we demand those. You can be a welfare person and still have $1,000 phone, and why shouldn't you, right? So that you can have the same communication as everybody else, and it doesn't matter what it costs. And part of the reason that it costs that much is because you have to get these little things, these little particles that make up these phones that nobody, like, I don't know how to make them. You don't know how to make them, is my guess. I don't think I've got a lot of phone engineers listening to this show. So it's a product that we buy. Don't spend a lot of time thinking about where it comes from or how it was even put together. And it comes from parts that are probably mined. Plastic comes from out of the earth. It's a petroleum byproduct in most cases, and then lithium obviously comes out of the earth, and that's mined usually in cobalt operations, or copper and cobalt and those type of things. So those are coming out of that, and the same thing with our electric vehicles, that we have to get our batteries. We need batteries for almost everything that we do, because we have long since walked away from being plugged into the wall. One of the tools that I am using to do some of the work on the press boxes is I just use one of my older circular saws that you still, plug in with an extension cord, and you cut the steel, with the right blade. And it's like this cord is getting in the way, because all the other equipment we have is cordless and run by batteries, which are powered by some type of mineral that is mined. And we are not going back to being plugged into the wall. And we certainly aren't looking, we're looking for more power and more compact power. And that's what's driving the market. And we have a lot of people that want to drive around in electric vehicles. And we have a government that is, proponents of electric vehicles because of carbon emissions and the magic that goes with carbon emissions. And so people are like, yes, we should not be using petroleum that we can see, because we have good eyes and we are science-based, and we look and we see there's something coming out of your tailpipe, and that's probably death. And so we're going to go ahead and do something that doesn't have an emission, and we're going to go with electric vehicles, and that's smart. And there's some value to it. However, those minerals, that 1,000 pounds of mineral, battery that's in the base of those vehicles, comes from somewhere. And it probably comes from Africa or some other place that you have not been to. And for that matter, neither have I. And so those minerals that are pulled from the earth are done so in any variety of ways. I'm not an environmentalist, like a nut job that throws, paint at famous paintings or soup at paintings. But I do care about how we take care of our planet. And I'm not quite bought into the idea that our petroleum emissions are what we need to get rid of at the cost of ripping open the earth for lithium or whatever it happens to be. So these things are happening all over the place, and China is just like the United States. I mean, the United States has interests. We are mining our own stuff, mining stuff from overseas. China is doing a great job at getting into places like Africa and Southwest Asia and, wherever they can to mine the resources that they know that you and I want. We need our phones. We need our electronic devices. We need our electric cars. And China's like, that's the market. We're going to go ahead and we're going to invest in all these other places. And we're communists, so we obviously don't care about human rights, which is a big hitch for the United States, theoretically. So we're not trying to, exploit necessarily, as much as the woke folks say that we're just, colonialists and exploiters and everything like that. Meanwhile, their favorite communists are over there just absolutely exploiting the children of the Congo, and whatever they can, so that they can pull their lithium, so that they can text their next protest meeting date to each other, or whatever it happens to be. And so China is just doing what we know in popular culture is going to happen, whether it's Avatar, right, where we do interstellar mining, and then we get it's really an old, it's really an old Western is all it is. It's just taking place in the future and in space, and you have the natives and you have the cowboys, and obviously the cowboys in this case are the bad guys, and they're all trying to get, the resources. The same thing happens with the Dune shows, the movies that are out now. I didn't realize that Chalamet, I don't know how to say it. I haven't seen it yet. Timothy, I didn't realize it was Thee at the end. I mean, what are we doing? But anyway, so Timothy Chalamet's movie, the Dune, and those things. Again, mining for spices. So they're just mining. They're just going out and trying to, we're trying to get the resources from the local indigenous group that they don't know what to do with it, or they do know what to do with it and they're not sure what to do with it, but we're going to go ahead and get it ourselves. Even the idea of just constantly mining and finding new resources throughout the universe is kind of an old concept, and it's based on the old concept of that's what human beings have been doing for a long time. We mine for gold and for copper and for lead and iron and diamonds and coal. Did I say coal already? We mine for all kinds of things, digging things out of the earth. We obviously, you can call it mining. It's drilling for oil or petroleum products, natural gases, things like that. We dig into the earth and we find the resources that God has provided on this blue sphere of ours, and we put it to use. And human ingenuity is really good at doing that. And so nations like China are doing a good job mining the world, and it is a little bit of a race. So interestingly enough, Tesla recently, the shareholders of Tesla said, well, we'll give $56 billion pay package to Elon Musk. That seems reasonable. But they decided also that they were not going to agree to a moratorium on getting electric vehicle battery metals from deep sea ecosystems. I don't live by an ocean, but I like visiting the ocean. And apparently at about 13,000 feet down, so a little over 2 miles deep beneath the surface of the sea, there's deep sea mining operations where they're pulling these, I guess they're like, I don't know, potato-sized rocks, and they're called polymetallic nodules. And they're just pulling them up and then they'll use those metals to create their electric vehicle batteries. Things like cobalt and nickel are there, and people are, that's apparently it's worthwhile to do that, to mine the bottom of the seafloor for these little what did I just call them? One of these polymetallic nodules, and those. So GE did the same thing, by the way. So Tesla said, "Yeah, we're not going to agree to the moratorium." In other words, we're going to keep doing it. And not GE, but General Motors did the same thing. So not GE, but GM. They're like, I don't think we're going to go that far. Like we're not going to shut down the opportunity to pick things off So those type of mining operations, maybe they're not affecting indigenous people because they're 13,000 feet below the surface of the sea, but they are, probably affecting blind, miniature, shrimp or crabs or, who knows, perhaps mermaids. I don't know, but they're down there, and people are very concerned about that because one of the things that, I read an article and it said that, there's things down there at 13,000 feet that don't exist anywhere else in the world. I suppose not, because it's 13,000 feet below water, but duly noted. And so we'll go to great extents to have these, enormous mining operations at sea to suck the potato-sized polymetallic nodules off the floor of the ocean, probably with some innocent shrimps, and bring them up, and so that you can drive your electric car and have your cell phone in your hand. And we'll do that. And is that better than just ripping open the earth over in the Congo, and then having all of the little Congo children there working. It's good to have. Look, it's good to teach your kids how to work. They should have jobs. But I think we've gone a little far in the Congo, where we have 9, 10, 13-year-olds working in the open mines so that you can have your electric car. And so it's kind of that's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? Isn't it a little ridiculous that we have somebody over here saying you should not be driving your F-250 and you're ruining the environment, and I'm doing a great job because I drive my Tesla or my Cobalt, whatever your electrical vehicle is, and now I'm saving the earth, and I'm doing it at the expense of like a 12-year-old child in the Congo, and no, we're never going to meet them, and who really cares? That is to me, that's the mindset. And so what's crazy is that I've done some research on like solar fields and the wind generation things that we have. We got these wind turbines all across Iowa, and they've really changed our landscape, not to mention our skyscape or whatever you want to call it. And we even we're so proud of it, we even had it on our license plate, and we might still have them now. We have these wind these wind turbines on our we're mining the wind, so to speak. And they work, like they generate electricity. They do that. That is true. But the only reason that they work financially is because we're subsidizing them. You and I are paying for those multi-million-dollar wind turbines that are all over the state of Iowa. And it makes other people feel good. Politically, it seems like it's a good thing. But if it was a good thing economically, then why wouldn't you just invest in it on your own and be successful in mining the wind, like the Chinese are successfully mining the cobalt and the lithium over in the Congo or in other places? Why do you have to subsidize it? You don't have to subsidize coal. Coal works really well. We mine that. And those companies dig that. They dig, they did, whether it's an open mine or whatever, the mining that we've done in the United States with coal, those are individual companies. They work pretty good. They're not being subsidized. In fact, the government is shutting them down. But we, on the other hand, are paying for these alternative fuels or renewable, quote unquote, energies. It is renewable. Wind continues to come, and they do generate electricity. But it's at a tremendous cost to the taxpayer, and it doesn't work out. If you use your math pencil, it doesn't pencil out without subsidies. There are other alternative fuels like that as well, and almost all of them actually. So without subsidies, they don't work. So you're paying for that. Even though it seems like it's a great deal, and obviously they have the downfalls. They don't operate when the wind isn't blowing. Fortunately, here in Iowa, the wind is blowing most of the time. If it's blowing too much, they'll shut down for safety, and so they can operate 24/7, 365. If the wind is within the parameters. Solar works. Obviously, the technology for solar hasn't changed in 40 or 50 years. The cells, the photovoltaic cells, not much change there whatsoever. Obviously, some improvements in the framing and where they can be used, and perhaps the thickness and maybe the longevity. But for the most part, they have not changed much at all. And they work during the day, as long, when the sun's out, they work out, and they degrade on an annual basis. So 100% on the first year, and then working its way down, so that by the time you get to that 20-year mark, you need to replace it. And then you just bury it. Look, just dig a hole and bury the soul. And maybe someday in the future, people will go back and they'll mine the old solar, photovoltaic cells that we've just buried in the earth because they didn't work anymore. And we're like, no, actually they do work. And now we've got a use for them. So maybe we're mining, junkyards for future photovoltaic cells. So maybe they'll find a use for the giant wind turbine blades that are, so long and not recyclable and whatever. And maybe they just bury those. Maybe they'll mine those in the future. We never know. So it's a mining operation, and it's not just that the mining it's not just metals and ores and petroleum and natural gases and things like that. It's the things that you need to run the nuclear plants, which we could use a lot more of. Did you know that you can have little miniature? They have these mobile nuclear generators. I mean, think about it. We have nuclear submarines, and why wouldn't we be able to have these nuclear generators? And they do, and they work great. But in America, we're so scared of, I don't know what. We just refuse. Nuclear energy would absolutely resolve the energy situation that we have, and we could quit smacking the birds out of the air with giant fans. We could still have solar, and we could do that. People could put them on their roofs. It looks really attractive, or they could have whole solar fields and replace them every 15 or 20 years, and whatever they decide to do. We could just have nuclear. We could have a nuclear reactor in every state or two, or maybe in every state park. That would be great. Doesn't even have to be a big one, and they are incredibly safe. It's just incredibly hard to convince our government to let people provide that energy. Again, though, you'd have to mine those resources, and then you'd have to dispose of those resources, and so on and so forth. It's not as nasty as people make it seem, and that works well. When you're trying to manipulate votes, you have to put a little bit of fear into them. And they're like, what happens when it blows up? Did you think about that? Don't you watch The Simpsons? Don't you know? And so that works really well. And so we'll just keep throwing subsidies at other things that work some of the time. And completely ignore child labor or slave labor that goes on in Africa. Seems like there's a part of the population that is really for these environmental advantages of electric vehicles, and completely okay with the slavery situation in another country on another continent. Two different things that they can rectify, I guess, at a different time. But all of it requires some sort of use of the Earth's resources. And I think that we've learned such a great deal from mining exercises in our history of humanity that, whether you're the Romans and you're pulling, tin from a place out in, Cornwall, or it's just your, the modern day process of mining ore for fuel or making cell phones or electric vehicles, whatever it happens to be, the concept is still the same. And you can extrapolate the idea of potentially affecting indigenous peoples or shrimp populations and say, well, this ends justify the means of that exploitation or whatever it was. And exploitation is a popular word right now. If you can find a way to be a victim, or you can find a way to, be a part of an oppressed group, that's a commodity in and of itself in today's world. And we seem to, pop culture wise, agree that people that are, if they're mining the coal, then they are Appalachia. They're probably on drugs. They're probably in pain, and they probably don't know any better, and their environment is being denuded by wicked people. And we'd say the same thing about oil, and we'd say the same thing about, you name it. I would say the same thing about electronic mining that's going on. And I'm not talking about Bitcoin mining or things like that. I'm talking about the concept, the process is still the same. How can we take advantage of large groups of people and mine wealth from them without their knowing it? And again, China's doing this really well with a thing called Temu. So Temu, I don't know what that, I had to look up what it is. I don't have the Temu app because I'm not a communist, just like I don't have the TikTok app because, again, just not communist enough to need TikTok or Temu. And so I look at, turns out that I'm not the only one that feels this way. I guess Tom Cotton, who's a senator, elected official guy in Washington, D.C., and he is, and Marco Rubio, another elected official guy, senator. He's from Florida. I think Tom Cotton's from Oklahoma. And not popular guys with, the people that have the learning disabilities, like the PhDs and things like that in academia, but they are popular with, I think, folks that just have a degree in common sense. And something that Tom Cotton is bringing attention to with Marco Rubio and some of these other guys is that Temu, Temu, is bad. It's the entire Temu organization, all of their executive board, their leadership. That company is run by important members, former members of the Chinese Communist Party. Now, they're still Chinese, they're still communists. Maybe they're just not officially holding a title or a role in the party, but they definitely are holding a role and a title, a responsibility to the Chinese Communist Party, and that would be they are supposed to make sure that they mine as much data and money as they possibly can from the United States. And they did so by, a few years ago, Temu came on the scene, and they are China's outstanding at getting your attention and making you feel like you need this. So they're cheaper than Amazon. They're the Chinese Amazon is how they're. It's just fun, and it's fashion, and it's stuff that you need. And that's what China knows, that Americans are like, I like fun, and I like fashion, and I need affordability. I really do. And so they are very cheap. And so you can buy, there was something before that was Chinese, and it's still out there. It's called Alibaba. Alibaba is a Chinese internet. You can get anything on Alibaba, and it is probably very cheap and very Chinese, and more than likely not the quality that you're hoping that it would be. But so there's Temu now has spent hundreds of millions of dollars just flooding social media, particularly Facebook or Meta. And I've seen it, and I don't know even what it is. So they're advertising everything from household products to I guess underwear. So they're throwing those commercials out there, trying to really hopefully get your attention and get the app for Temu so that they can get your American buyer information, and then you'll just buy your stuff from Temu instead of Amazon. Well, all's fair in love and war and in the economy and stuff like that. But why does China? All China's doing is they're just mining. You know what I mean? That as a communist party, China's not as strong of a state as we make them out to be. They're a bit of a paper tiger, and they are still communist, which means that they don't have a lot of good ideas because they do everything by committee, and they don't trust the capitalist system, which has a lot of good ideas, and it just causes a lot of growth and then the dying out of the undergrowth and then resurgences, and that's a different. I guess you want to put it in a farm view, but Temu is just one of those companies that is mining the resources of the United States. They were actually $7, I guess I don't know how it worked out, but they were something like $7. They spent way more money on marketing to get into the American psyche as a viable resource to buy stuff, cheap products from China that they can ship to you factory direct, and that's how they save money, because it comes from the direct. It's come from like Johnny Cash said, one piece at a time. I got it from the factory. It's cheaper that way, and that's what China's offering, and they're doing that to United States citizens and to Canada, basically anybody in the West, and that includes South Africa. South Africa just passed a law where they're going to add a 20%. What is it? A 20% tariff to any purchase from Temu, and then also on top of that, a VAT tax, which is a value-added tax. So they're really taxing the heck out of anything that you purchase in South Africa. If you're a South African and you're like, I'm going to go and buy my stuff from Temu, and they're like, go right ahead. We're gonna equalize the spending a little bit, and they're doing that with tariffs. Now, there's libertarians that are a lot smarter and snarkier than I am that live in New York, and they will say how bad tariffs are. That's not the world free economy. And then you have some guys like Donald Trump, who's saying that he would potentially eliminate the income tax in the United States and replace it with tariffs, which is interesting because there's quite a gap between the $2 trillion that the United States collects in income taxes, mostly from the top 10% of income, like the income earned, the top 10%, particularly the top 1%, they pay for most of those taxes. So, 90% of Americans feel like they're paying taxes, and they're not even really making a difference like they think they are. But regardless, if you did do that, you'd have to really be interesting to see what kind of, as it currently stands, what we get from tariffs on trade and things like that. It doesn't add up to that at all. It's maybe 800 billion. So and we're not where we need, or maybe the government's too big and you can just cut 1.2 trillion from the government, which I'd be okay with as well. So anyway, that's what they're doing. All Temu is doing is mining as many Western markets for cash as they possibly can, cash and information. It's a mining operation. You're the indigenous population. It's whether it's TikTok or Temu or who knows what comes out next, it's being mined. And one could argue that, they learned it from the best. We would say that our own social media does the exact same thing. They mine information from you. You give it up freely. You don't read and I don't either. I don't. Go ahead and you read this user agreement, and it's like, yeah, okay, accept. And all of that. You probably have to, sell your first, children to Moloch or whatever. But it's in there, and you're like, it's convenient for me now, and now I can get what I want immediately. I don't know. It's just a mining operation. So to me, it's no different. Temu is a mining operation, and they're collecting. That's what occurred to me. But I'm going to break it down a little smaller than that, and this is what I'm going to wrap it up with, because it's the subject of mining, whether it is for minerals in the earth, or at the bottom of the ocean, or wind in the air, or sun from the sky. It's all mining, and so is our economy. You are being mined by. And I think there's some nefarious tones associated. Like if you're going to blame the coal mining industry for why the earth is getting warmer with your science, if you're going to blame them, I think it's fair to also understand that you're being mined by, Meta and certainly Temu and TikTok. That's a mining operation. But the mining operation goes a little closer to this, and this is what brought this whole thing to me as a subject to discuss. So when you're a rural population, we were the city that I lived in, a little town. I live out in the country, and we have a small town of less than 5,000 people. We've got a grocery store that is a pretty big chain, and they have some amazing stores and facilities in the upper Midwest. And it's called Hy-Vee. It's an Iowa-based company. They do a lot of, they have their names on a lot of things in Iowa. They've been around for a long time. It's a success story. It truly is. And I've been to some Hy-Vees, they opened up in Minnesota several years ago, and they're kind of taking over that, getting a good footprint up there. They have amazing stores. They have amazing selection. They have great products. They have great catering. They got it figured out. We were in Des Moines this weekend. Lots of Hy-Vees down there. That's where it's based. And great urban, fancy Hy-Vee grocery stores. They've got, they've partnered with Wahlburgers. They've got little restaurants there. The shopping experience is phenomenal. All the selection that you can possibly imagine, all the cultural foods that you would want to have, they have. Great meat department. I mean, it's still meat if you're buying a hamburger from a grocery store, you're buying 70 cows. I mean, that's what you're doing. But it's still, pretty good meat department and on and on and on. So Hy-Vee is a success story for Iowa, but they are also, in my opinion, mining, and they mine it in a different way. When we have a Hy-Vee store here in Iowa, here where I live in our little town, and we have another Hy-Vee store down the road in another small town, and we just have little Hy-Vees. And when you are out in the hinterlands, you're not getting the same Hy-Vee store that they have down in West Des Moines. You're getting, at first, we got all of the brands, and it seemed really cool because the store that had been there before didn't have as many brands, and this was like the entire Hy-Vee variety. And now, slowly, I'm watching this, and I don't know if anybody else is paying attention. Maybe they don't have the time and they're too busy. But slowly, the name brand products in every aisle, where there's a smile, by the way, that's their theme, there's a smile in every aisle, have been removed and replaced with Hy-Vee brand, store brand products. Oh, you want this? Well, we don't have that name brand, but we've got this Hy-Vee brand. And that's because there's more profit in that. And I understand the business concept of it. But I think it's just like a mining operation to indigenous populations. If you're in a small town and you've got a Hy-Vee or a chain grocery store of any kind, they are going to absolutely replace the name brand products that you see advertised on TV or social media or whatever it is that you love. Maybe it's a traditional situation. And they're going to replace it with their own brand. They're going to replace it with their own brand, and you're going to buy it because you're living in a small town and you don't have the buying power and you don't have as many people to take things off the shelves in the amount of time that they need in order to be able to make up the price difference. And I think that Hy-Vee Corporation is smart, but also it's a little nefarious in the same way that some mining operations are. They're mining the smaller out hinterland, the Congo of Iowa, with their name brand product replacements, where they make more money so that they can spend more money on the urban stores that they have where they aren't making as much money because they're selling the brand items. And so, in a way, we are we are subsidizing West Des Moines Hy-Vee out here in the hinterlands because we're buying their store brand products, and so that they can buy the stovetop stuff and buy name brand down there in West Des Moines, and then walk through Wahlburgers and grab a sandwich in flip-flops. If you're a man, there's a slight diversion here. If you're a grown man and you're wearing flip-flops and you're not like in a shower or a public shower or maybe the beach, you are not a man. You are a person who is easy to defeat. You're part of the problem. Your comfort level in your shoes shows that you have no ability to defend yourself, and you would probably cry like a baby. And your shoe would fall off, and you would not be able to save or help anyone if there was an emergency because you were wearing flip-flops like a moron. You do not have the ability, and your feet aren't tough. Like, I'm pretty sure you're sensitive to hot surfaces and gravel. So you're wearing flip-flops, which means that you are basically announcing to the world, as a man, I am not a warrior. I do not have the proper footgear in order to defend my family or save and help the innocent around me. I am wearing flip-flops, and I am a man in name only. And I say that, I put that out there. That's maybe the most controversial thing I said, despite the fact that grocery stores are probably mining the rural communities with their name brand products. I'm putting that out as the most egregious thing that I've said, and that is, if you're a man wearing flip-flops, you are not a warrior. You can't be. You're probably you're lining up for victimhood, and you're teaching your children that dad is a sissy. That's not saying that there isn't a place for flip-flops, although I don't think there really is. The shower, public shower, probably not in a public shower very often, is my guess. I can't really think of another place that you would need them. And I have a problem too, because now our kids, I didn't mean to go down this road, but I can't help myself. I saw a lot of dudes in West Des Moines this weekend that were men. They had gray in their beard, their manicured beards. I'm sort of manicured, but very manicured beards, and they were wearing flip-flops in a store, in public, and they have no ability to do anything. They'd pick out their phone and they'd call, and then another man that has proper footwear would come and take care of the situation. And people like that, we've taught our children to wear slides. Those, they're basically flip-flops, but they have like their athletic slides now, and kids wear them now with socks, which when I was in high school, if you wore socks with sandals, you were a fuddy-duddy. And now they wear them with socks all the time. It doesn't really bother me because I appreciate socks. However, slides, again, I don't care how athletic you are. If you're wearing slides, you have just like reduced your athletic profile in half because those shoes are coming off. If you have to run after somebody to save the day, you can't do it, even if you're fast. Why? Because you have floppers. You have slides on. You have flip-flops on. You're a Jimmy Buffett song, a parody of a man. What are you doing with your flip-flops? Throw them away. All right. There's no way that you can fight them. I tell you what, those kids in the Congo, they're not wearing flip-flops. And if they are, their feet are tough anyway. So, you don't have any of that going for you. There we go. I didn't mean to get onto the flip-flop thing, but I feel strongly. I could have made a whole episode about that. There's just a whole bunch of mining going on, and my observations are that it's happening in just about everything that we do, and they might be onto something with Temu. I would encourage you not to get that app, particularly since they're also, Temu's not offering me any money to say how great they are. So I'm going to say probably the truth, that they're not great, and you probably should get rid of that app and the TikTok app, and then we'll just see what happens with the Hy-Vee situation. But go to your local Hy-Vee and be like, if you're in an urban area, you just fist bump the manager of the Hy-Vee and appreciate it, dude. Keep that mining of the rural areas going. Love what you're doing here. I'm going to go over to Mark Wahlberg's burger joint now. And then if you're in the rural communities with your Hy-Vees and you're noticing that everything has Hy-Vee brand labels and you're missing your favorite old products that you used to get by name brand, maybe bring it up. Say, what's the deal here? Where's the name brand stuff? Why are you mining me for my money that you're just going to turn around and put into a store in West Des Moines? It's a question. It's a question you need to ask. And I think the rain has stopped so I can get back to work. And I hope that no matter what happens, whether it's in the grocery store or maybe, you're just making some observations about mining yourself this week, I hope that you take the time to be the sunny side of someone else's life. See you next week. I want to thank all our friends and guests for stopping by for this episode of The Sunny Side of Life. All the Sunny Side of Life players who stopped by, creative support provided every day by my incredible wife Heidi and our fantastic 4 boys. Thanks to every one of our listeners. That means you. A big shout out to my brothers and sisters in uniform holding the line around the world. Share the word, folks. Let the people know what we're up to. Subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on social media. All skits are written or adapted and directed by me, Troy Thompson, and are produced here at Sunnyside Farm Studios and delivered to all platforms by Buzzsprout. Music and sound effects are provided by Soundstripe. The Sunny Side of Life is a weekly production about our life on the family farmstead here in Iowa, the liberties we prize, and the pursuits which make us happy. Now, none of this is possible without Christ in our lives. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory. So may the Lord bless you and keep you, and may the sunny side of your life, liberty and pursuits, be in Christ, and made evident unto you each and every day, and give you peace.